this week of I'll Tell You What is going to be a little bit different from normal. Yes, we're still going to talk about their weddings, but I believe there's going to be a higher emphasis on their marriages because each of these couples have gone through their own set of trials and tribulations, quite publicly, I might add. But one thing all of them have in common is that despite it all, each of their wives remained by their side. So it's "and she stood beside him" week. Now you already know the couple I'm going to talk about today. They're known for their philanthropic work. They changed the way Black people were perceived and seen throughout America. Yeah, we'll warm up some pound cake because today we're going to talk about the wedding, but mostly the marriage of Camille and Bill Cosby. If you're new here, I'll Tell You What is a daily deep dive at some of the most epic and memorable weddings and marriages that have occurred throughout Black history. Our trip down memory lane isn't met with malintent, but comes from a place of nostalgia, sometimes inspiration, but most of all is rooted in realism. So let's go back to 1963. Bill was 25, had dropped out of Temple to pursue his comedy career. Meanwhile, Camille was a 19-year-old psychology major at the University of Maryland. They met at a bowling alley through mutual friends. On their first date, he took her to a club where he was performing. And afterwards, as they sat in the car, he just talked all about himself and what he wanted for himself for his future. For some, they would hate that. But Camille actually liked his personality and said, and I quote, "He impressed me with his sincerity and humor." On their second date, he proposes, which completely shocked Camille because she's like, we don't even really know each other like that. So I don't believe she said yes. But he was persistent. He would call her every single day. He would drive to Maryland every weekend to take her to the movies where he would fall asleep. Camille actually said those were the moments that made her fall in love with him. That following summer, they got engaged. But her parents did not like that at all. So her parents sent her to Virginia to stay with family over the summer, and she called off the engagement. So that fall, Bill goes to her father and asks for permission to marry Camille. Mind you, her parents still not here for it, but he does say yes. I guess they knew this was a battle they were going to lose, so they ended up helping with the wedding. And after 3 premarital counseling sessions, they got married on January 25th, 1964 in Olney, Maryland, on a Catholic church's basketball court because the church was under renovation. After they got married, their lives would never be the same. About a year into their marriage, they would start to have a family. They had 5 kids, 4 girls and a boy. Bill's career would take off immensely. Everybody wanted him to perform. His comedy albums were selling really well. And he landed a role on I Spy, and that made him the first African American to be a co-star on a network show. After that, he created Fat Albert. We all remember his Jell-O commercials. And I don't even have to mention anything about the Cosby Show. And this fame and fortune allowed him to be able to provide for his family. Not only did they have multiple homes, but in one of the homes, there was a wing for his brother and a wing for his mother. Entertainers and other famous friends would come by all the time. And they were also able to use their platform to give back, mostly to HBCUs. They gave $20 million to Spelman in 1989, which at the time was the biggest donation to a Black college. And Bill was publicly madly in love with Camille. He was known for throwing "I love my wife" parties, and they would celebrate their wedding anniversaries with family and friends. And as we know, in every marriage, there is something that will test your vows and your commitment to each other. Bill and Camille dealt with the failed attempt to purchase NBC, the various accusations of infidelity, the deaths of their parents, but also the untimely passing of 2 of their 5 children. And as you know, the sexual assault allegations. But when the conviction was overturned, she was there. And when it was time for her to break her silence, despite the fact that she wasn't wearing her wedding ring, or the fact that she didn't visit him in prison, when it was time for her to speak, she continued to defend her man because she believes in him, and that's all that matters to her. So what'd you think of this episode of I'll Tell You What? I know there are many, many thoughts around this couple. This was one that was requested many times. What would you do if you were Camille? Or how would you handle this if you were Bill? We're going to continue the She Stuck Beside Him series all week long, so don't forget to follow here and on IG. Come back tomorrow for another episode of I'll Tell You What, brought to you by Hueido.